Or to Canada, folks, on what's happening. It's kind of interesting what's happening in Canada. And we are in the I told you so era, and we told you so. And because we were a shadow banned, you didn't get to hear it. But rest assured, there's content creators making content today that are telling you what we already told you, probably 10 years ago now. But that's okay. What do we got for you here? Canadian GDP rises on government spending, big revisions to slow rate cuts. GDP rises on government spending. GDP. Mortgage debt passes 80% of GDP, economic storm hitting, major tax hike ahead, major exodus 4 years ago. Countries using housing to prop GDP market will crash by 2025, 5 years ago. Japan unexpectedly reports terrible GDP. Remember Japanification we talked about? Remember that? And a lot of other content creators made t-shirts about Japanification. And Canada's economic crisis, the hidden truth behind GDP. Canada's GDP is flat, but real estate outperforms. Mass exodus of youth from Canadian cities. Major Canadian real estate debt passed 76% of GDP. Mass inflation by 2022. Tax hikes again 6 years ago. It doesn't look. Hot war ahead. Hot war ahead. China. GDP retracting. Print more money, but inflation will creep in fast. 7 years ago. And again, GDP is rising on government spending. Yeah. And Canada expects to lose 1 in 10 people to voluntarily leave by next year. What are these, or who are these 1 in 10 people that are voluntarily leaving? It's Europeans. It's the European expansion is on its way. And we talked about the mass exodus. And the mass exodus will be European expansion. It'll be Canada hates Portuguese. Portuguese will be leaving. I know a lot of people going back to Portugal. Italians, I know some Italians that are going back to Italy. I know a lot of people that are going back to Europe. So the 1 in 10 people are the people that came here and built this country and infrastructure. But yes, they are going to be leaving on their own accord. They'll sell their overly inflated Chinese money laundered homes that they bought for $40,000, $60,000, $100,000. Now they'll sell it for $2 million and go back to Europe and live a quiet, peaceful life, if they can, in a small, secluded area or some sort. And mass exodus, 1 out of 10 people leaving. What did we tell you? Well, here it is. I told you so error. I'm done with Vancouver. Affordability out of reach. Mass exodus ahead 7 years ago. Vancouver mass exodus. Young families leaving. Can't compete with CCP money laundering. Mass exodus for Ireland's youth takeover. Pushing talent out 6 years ago. Massive destruction coming to Kelowna, BC as Vancouver mass exodus. Foreign money. Homelessness 6 years ago. Look at Kelowna today from 6 years ago and where it's at. Mike of the Night. Mass exodus from big cities 5 years ago. Get out now. Toronto mass exodus, housing crisis. They will tax you to death 6 years ago. It just doesn't end. Look at this. Economic takeover of London, Dublin, Edinburgh, UK. Mass exodus, UK homeless crisis 7 years ago. Young families leaving cities. Mass exodus of major cities by 2020 as young families leaving due to affordability crisis and tax hikes 7 years ago. And it ties into 1 out of 10 people voluntarily leaving. Because people just can't afford to live in the cities they were born and raised in. And this is the I told you so era. But it doesn't matter. Because now a content creator that came after COVID is going to make this video about 1 in 10. Talking about all this stuff. And like he discovered the Holy Grail. But we were already warning you guys about this and how it was going to come down. And now we are here. And now I can't still afford to pay my internet bill.